Alrighty, hi everybody. My name is Sierra McCoy. I am the marketing coordinator over at Dynexus Recruiting, and we're really excited today. I'm going to introduce you to our moderator, Julian Schrenzel. He is our owner, president, and CEO with over 15 years of experience at Dynexus. So take it away, Julian.
Thank you, Sierra, and hello world. I'm very excited to open and moderate a very important and exciting conversation that we are having. This webinar is entitled Securing Tomorrow's ERP Channel Talent. We have 4 questions for 6 very well-known, recognized ERP publisher partner channel builders. So I'm very excited today to announce or introduce our panelists. We have 6 panelists, as you can see. I'm going to give you a brief here. Jeff Ashley is the principal of Jeff Ashley and Associates and the former vice president of partners, strategy, and programs at Acumatica. He has over 40 years experience creating and building dominant ERP partner channels for Best Software, which is Sage, Navision, Microsoft, and SAP, Sugar CRM, and also Acumatica. Heather Matthews is the director of global next-gen programs and university alliances at SAP. She has over 20 years of experience creating and managing successful global education programs. Michael Bennett is global channel executive with Cisco. He has a passion for building organizations with thriving partner channels and has been doing so for over 15 years for Cisco, Crayon, and Microsoft. Susan Vincent is managing director for Baker Tilly Digital, the 9th largest CPA consulting firm in the US. Having formerly served Sage Intact as their VP of Partner Enablement, she has more than 25 years of experience converting both partners and customers into raving fans, actually. Nils Jensen. Nils is a partner strategy lead with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain at Microsoft. He has a passion for helping people and businesses achieve their goals and has been doing so for over 20 years. And then finally, who may show up, Ali may or may not be able to show up today, but Ali Jani, if he does show up, is the Chief Product Officer at Acumatica and has been there for over 12 years. Ali is an experienced software industry executive with a competitive business mind and a passion for working collaboratively with teams to solve customers' business and technology challenges. So these are our panelists today. We are going to be asking, as you know, 4 questions. Following our 4 questions and discussions around those questions, there's going to be approximately a 10-minute time for audience Q&A. So audience, as you are listening and listening in, as you have questions, please put them into the comments on LinkedIn, and you will be able to put that comment in, and Sierra will send that over to myself, and we will be able to ask our panelists your questions directly as well. So I am going to start with the first question, and that first question is, why do mid-market ERP partners struggle to find the talent that they need? And that question, I'm going to open this with Susan. Susan Vincent, I'm wondering if you might be able to give us an answer there.
Thanks, Julian. I think I kind of there's 2 things. One, whether we're looking at an ERP vendor like Acumatica or Intact, they probably have a recruiter. They have a pipeline of recruits. But you talk about an ERP partner that's in the channel or a reseller or a VAR or whatever you call your partners. They typically are not going to have that HR recruiter person in place. And even if they do, that's not their full-time job. It's a part-time job. So I think creating a pipeline of candidates is very difficult. Before COVID, during COVID, and now it's certainly difficult. So I think that's the first thing that I say. And then the second thing is just attracting talent is difficult when you are a person who's doing this part-time. So I think it's dedication, I think it's pipeline, and I think it's just dedicated time in that role as a partner.
Thank you, Susan. That's good information from your time working with Sage and also with a partner. You have a unique experience that way. I want to also ask the same thing of the Microsoft channel, which would be Niels at this point. Niels, I wonder if you might be able to give us a little thought as to why it is that ERP partners have always seemed to generally struggle to hire the talent they need.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, honestly, I think you also said it well. I don't think that this is new. I think we've always seen a shortage in the number of people that we need to attract into our partner ecosystem versus the talent that we have there. But also, we are living at a time where we have geopolitical instability, we have a pandemic, as was mentioned, we have an inflation, and this has just caused additional pressure in the system to onboard more talent. I love the way that was phrased before around the recruiters, and that's a real job. But if I elevate a little bit around probably some mega trends that we are seeing, it's not only about the traditional talent where we see partners need to recruit, it's also new type of talent. So I think the first thing that we're seeing is that there's a big shortage of developers. IDC basically say there's a 1.4 million shortage. It'll grow to 4 million in 2025. So one of the things that we are trying to do is make sure that we can attract people or just reach out to customers that can do low code or no code, which doesn't require any type of IT skilling. And the second one is basically what we think of as hyper automation. So that's how we can make sure that IT can be used to as a deflationary force to reduce cost. But that requires that you have a data infrastructure and can leverage AI, and that requires data scientists, which may not be something that partners are immediately looking for today. And the last thing I want to say is that we all know data is exploding, and companies are getting data from various sources, from IoT, from websites, and also ERP. And again, you need to help customers make sense of that data, and that also require other people than the normal consultants and developers like data scientists.
Thank you, Niels. Interesting. Let's move right on to question 2, because some of these other questions might be longer, and if we have the time to cover things more in depth, I'd love to. So the question number 2 is, what role, if any, do you personally feel that ERP publishers should play in creating and nurturing the ERP consulting workforce of tomorrow for their partner channels? The question goes out first to Jeff Ashley.
Thank you. I guess the simple answer is they should be playing a huge role. And I guess maybe more importantly, they should realize that how much they benefit from playing such a huge role. You know, I guess first off, publishers should really think about centralizing and standardizing a hiring process. You know, if you've got a partner channel with hundreds of VARs and every one of them is individual, you've got hundreds of people doing it hundreds of different ways, and you're not being able to maximize the effectiveness and the efficiency of this huge area of data. So for example, you could create programs and make them available to all partners. So, and then partners opt in. Well, this is great for the publishers because that gives them a very real world view as to who is actually investing in building their practice for their particular product. So are they investing in growth? The other thing is, if the publishers were to take ownership of these programs, then they could help with the business planning process with partners. I can tell you, after doing this for 40 years, partners all plan to grow year over year, but they hire based on the need. When they have a deal, then they hire quickly because they have a need to hire somebody, and they make hiring mistakes. But if the business plan says we're going to hire in 6 months from now, and a publisher were running these programs, they just start sending them the applicants 6 months from now, and maybe keep them on track, keep that growth happening. Also, remember, the publishers, unlike partners, publishers have hundreds and hundreds of active sales cycles and implementations going on at any point in time across their channels. So they have a very good opportunity to mentor these candidates and have not only knowledgeable or educated candidates, meaning they went in online and took an education and got a badge or got an authorization, but they can actually give partners trained individuals with experience from day one. According to several different sources, it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year for a consultant to be productive. It could take, because of the length of sales cycles, anywhere from 6 months to a year for a salesperson to be productive. Developer, who knows? It could take forever. So these publishers have the opportunity to do real world mentoring to help some of these resources get the information or the stuff that they need to get to productivity faster. Also, publishers can work with the universities and the colleges and please don't forget the veterans associations, things like that. And the reason that's important is because they're the brand. So if I'm a student in college, I don't know Joe Var ABC, but I do know Microsoft, I do know Cisco, I do know Acumatica, I do know Sage. And so I might go to that either in-person fair or that virtual fair, and I might look at what the opportunities are. And also a VAR who lives in Seattle area, for example, might be interviewing a candidate, but that candidate has no interest in staying in Seattle. They want to go to Florida. Well, that VAR is going to just throw them out. Whereas a publisher has access to all these all of these resumes of people that are applying for roles. Well, what do you do when you, the publisher, don't want to hire them? Right? Well, you know that there's a partner looking to hire in Florida. Send the person in Seattle to the VAR in Florida. Everybody's happy. Maybe you have a employee now that stays, as opposed to short-termers or bad hiring decisions. So again, there's a lot of things that publishers can do. If we have more time, I could list off a dozen more. But the bottom line on this is to be proactive. A publisher needs to be driving resources to their channel. This is all about ultimately feet on the street. And so to proactively grow, to proactively become more profitable, to proactively drive more revenues for your stakeholders, this is something that you have to invest in and do proactively. You can't wait until, and you can't allow or have 300 different VARs trying to do these one-off every single time. So it's a good win-win for publishers and partners for these publishers to take more aggressive control of the program.
Thank you, Jeff. That's awesome. You know, you're talking about special universities, which really makes me want to ask you, Heather, because I know that you are deeply involved with the university channel. I'm wondering if you might speak to this idea of what role do you feel the publisher should play in creating and nurturing the workforce of tomorrow?
Thanks, Julian. Well, you know what? I really kind of honed in on Jeff's word, proactive. You know, that the ERP provider should be really proactive. From an SAP perspective, we take a little bit different approach in terms of being proactive. For the last 30 years, we've actually had university programs around the world. So we go right into the universities and we work with professors who then use SAP software to make sure that students leave a university program with an understanding not only of the knowledge that they need on strategic sourcing or accounting or human resources topics, whatever it is, software implementations, but they also have a hands-on skill set that goes along with it, and in some cases, certification. We actually even take a step earlier in terms of being proactive. We go all the way back to, say, middle schools and high schools to engage with early talents who don't really know exactly what direction they're going, and to really encourage and support them to explore careers, in technology, data science, and so on. But specific to your question here, what we try to do, again, is we partner from the very beginning with universities. And I think it's super important that it not just be SAP in the university. We invite our ecosystem, our partners around the world to get plugged in to these opportunities. So for example, we invite our partners to connect right up front, bring a project, for example, to a university and start to develop those relationships through capstone projects. Our universities have an opportunity to create what they call an SAP Next Gen Lab on campus, which is a place where students and professors, of course, can engage in research and projects and hackathons and all those sorts of things to develop a skill set and topic expertise in something that you're interested in. And also, build those relationships to grab those students, really early in the process to encourage them to, come to your company as the employer of choice when they're ready to graduate. I encourage all university companies who are interested in hiring from universities to get plugged in right from the very beginning. Look for advisory board roles, look for opportunities to speak to student clubs, bring pizza and talk to student club and help them understand why it's so cool to be a consultant in your particular discipline or topic area or solution that you're trying to implement, and those sorts of things. We encourage you to provide guidance and direction on what you'd like to see from a curriculum perspective, because universities need to hear from those potential hiring companies what it is that they want. So we do all of those things. We encourage our partners and our customers to come right along with us on all of those topics. I could provide examples all over the place on how it is that we do that. In North America, we've got about 400 universities that we partner with on a regular basis. So we've got some great examples that, on a time permitting basis, we could go further into detail on.
Awesome, Heather. That's amazing that you guys are going. Even you had mentioned you're going into high schools. I thought you were about to tell me you're also like putting in like curriculum for preschools to be able to start bringing concepts of ERP into that's coming next. I'll bet.
That's coming next. That's
yeah.
to come. Yep.
If it's coming from anybody, it's coming from you. Awesome. Let me give a quick reminder to our audience. If you have questions that are coming up in your mind, either follow-ups to these or any additional questions, also remember, you can be chatting those into the comments on LinkedIn, and we will be gathering those as we are and collating them and asking them of our panelists at the end. I wanted to then ask a follow-up, the third question. The third question is, in your work as channel builders, which you all have been or are, what efforts have you made to address this challenge for your constituents, and what challenges have you come up against in those efforts? And I'm going to open this with Mr. Michael. Michael, I'm wondering if you might, with CISPRO, help us to understand what CISPRO has been, what your thought is.
Sure. Thank you, Julian. What we found is that particularly with the newer partners that are coming on board, to set them up for success, we really have to offer them a robust onboarding process. And so we've done a lot of work on overcoming the barriers of cost and time to allow them to actually get up and running as quickly as possible. Because at the end of the day, these are mid-sized companies and they're looking to get a return on the investment as soon as practically possible. So we've got processes in place which fast-track prospects from first contact to actually being fully sales and delivery enabled in as short a time as possible. So we've got portals, we've got a partner up portal, we've got Learn It Online platforms for self-paced learning. And that's actually been the fundamental core to what we've been able to do to help our partners on board. Really just to make them sure that they've actually got full access to all that they need to make the journey into the CISPRO ecosystem. And then the other thing that we found is to help them is, and we're very much a through partner organization, is they are the ones that are servicing, delivering the solutions to their end customers. So our team of professionals in all of our regions have to be there to guide and support them every step of the way. And then we also support them with marketing support, webinars for product updates. We listen very carefully to our partner advisory council and continue to make additional investments into the training programs that Jeff referred to. Jeff also said that, the ERP publishers can be a source of talent, and that's exactly what we're doing. The ERP publishers know where the talent is. They've got the best recruitment mechanisms, and to put that into place and to help the partners recruit the talent is good. The other thing is, and this came up in question one, is the skills that are needed today are quite different to what traditional ERP 10 years ago required. The skill sets have shifted from primary functional and business skills, such as traditionally associated with ERP, to having different skills, digital landscape requirements such as cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, integration, business intelligence, analytics are all now associated to ERP. So helping our channel expand their talent to including those skills has been key to us. So we continue to reevaluate the impact of our channel needs and to understand the partners' challenges so that we can meet their needs and evolve it as time goes on. There's certainly not a do once and implement forever program. It has to evolve every single year.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Niels, I'm wondering if you could speak to this from Microsoft's standpoint.
Yes, thank you. Just as it was mentioned earlier, we are also working together with academic institutions where we're reaching out to those students there. We have the Microsoft Learn curriculum, which is the full business applications curriculum that is available online free. That is actually deployed at academic institutions as well. And then we're working together with those and our partners to have an end-to-end journey and a recruitment engine, if you will, that they can be put into place with our partner community. And also in some areas, we are working with recruitment agencies to bridge that connection between the academic institution and then partner.
Thank you.
On top of that, as I mentioned, just one second, we do have a lot of content available online, but it's really about making sure that the candidates can take the training as they seem fit. So that can be online or events or classroom training. So we're catering to all those engines.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Just so you know, there's a little bit of cutting in and out on your microphone. We could hear everything you said, but it was a little bit challenging. So if just so you know, if there's anything you can do to adjust. I also wanted to ask you, Susan, from your experience working in channel with Sage Intact, if you might be able to weigh in on this a little bit.
Yeah, I really love what Michael said about all the enablement programs. You have to figure out what you need by vendor, by, for your particular channel, and create those programs that are very stable and ongoing. But I wanted to back up just quickly and talk about what created the challenge. And in my experience, in our situation, I'll just give you a real life, we knew the channel number, the revenue had to grow by X. Well, to deliver on X, we needed X number of consultants. And back to Neil's idea of what type of consultant, is it an AI? Is it a financial? Is it just straight up ERP? Is it specific over in a particular 606 type accounting and contract product? What type do we need? So we wanted to look at this. Why is the challenge there? We've got to deliver X more revenue this year with the same number of consultants? No. as a whole channel with X number of consultants added to the channel. So that's the challenge. So set up, that introduces then Julian. It starts me looking at, is it our recruiting? Is it our postings? Is it our attractiveness? Is it our partners? Because we're a very stable partner channel, not up and not down, has some new partners, but how do we address the challenge of growth in a time where COVID's really cutting into our membership, right? People aren't figuring out how not to work, not how to do more work. So I think that, Julian, it was really defining what's your challenge. Is the challenge types? Is the challenge the number? Is the challenge the recruiting? Or is the challenge that you and your constituents aren't even sure how to define the problem? So I think it's important to know the problem. And in our case, it was headcount. It was talented headcount. So Julian, that's, to me, along with all the other great enablement that Jeff and Michael and Heather and all of us have talked about, it's defining the challenge up front. Numbers, types, people, regions, locations, verticals, and then honing in on how you then go attack that.
Yep. Thank you for that. Thanks, Susan. That's great. I would like to move on to question number 4. So question number 4 says, if you could wave a magic wand and have partners, recruiters, schools, or even your own organizations do one thing that they are currently not doing to make a difference in this challenge, what would that be? And this question starts out, we're going to start out with Heather on this question. Heather, could you speak to this one?
Yeah, yes and no. This was the hardest one. This was the hardest one. I'm thankful that you sent these out in advance so I could think about them. This was the hardest one for whatever reason. I don't know that there's something that no one is doing where I think we need more of we can really make progress on this topic is more collaboration, just more collaboration, more connection. I think companies as a whole sometimes forget how awesome these students are that are coming out of programs where they get this technology skill set and knowledge, whether it's an SAP skill set, a Microsoft or other technology. Kids that come out of programs that use these sorts of technologies have so much, they have problem solving skills, they have troubleshooting skills, because if you've implemented software of any sort, there's always troubleshooting. And to be able to collaboratively work on that, it becomes, you become an awesome and in-demand kind of a resource. But I think if we can partner together, those of us who need really bright people to join our companies, I think we have a real opportunity to move the needle. I know through my program alone in North America, not even taking a look at universities around the world, we reach about 120 to 150,000 students a year who are getting an SAP skill set. Now, all of them aren't graduating. All of them don't want SAP careers. There's a big number that do. And so if we as a community can partner together and talk on campus, be plugged into campus activities, join a recruiting, join an advisory board so that you can really help shape curriculum. At the end of the day, you can help these universities develop early talents with the skill set you want. And I think when people start looking creatively at how can projects and implementations be structured, I think you have a real opportunity to say, okay, we really don't need deep expertise and years of experience for every single role on a project. There can be a nice mix of experienced people and early talents coming in who would thrive on some of the basic stuff that folks who have more experience don't really want to do anymore because they want to go do strategic things, right? And so we have an opportunity to shape what happens at university so we can bring them into our organizations and really then develop these individuals. So if I could do one thing, if the magic wand, it would be more of those things, more of that collaboration so that the young people at university can understand the cool opportunities with these careers. They can realize that there is a place for them as an early talent in consulting organizations and so on, implementation organizations, and really just start with those things. And it doesn't take a massive recruiting organization. It doesn't take, this massive effort. It just takes one step, one partnership, one relationship, get plugged into one activity. And then, those little steps can really start to be something. And together, if we're all doing those things, I think we could really make a big change in the talent gap.
That's great, Heather. And I saw one of the audience questions that I see has recently come in is around, around the sexiness of ERP, of learning ERP early on. And I think one of the added values that you're generating here is, like you said, not every student is going to want to become an ERP consultant. Or one of the traditional roles. But even if they don't, and they become exposed and get knowledge about the ERP, when they go on to become a CFO or a controller or an operations manager or whatever have you, they're going to be familiar with the technology and they're going to be decision makers in their organization. So you kind of have that added value of putting your brand out there in a way that will come back in a lot of different ways. I think that's really neat what you're doing. I wanted to open this also up to Jeff Ashley, who has, of course, a lot of different ERP background experience. Jeff, can you speak to number 4 here?
Well, I'm going to echo what Heather said. I don't know how you can get one thing. This is the tough one. I got to tell you, over the years, and I've worked with most of the ERP publishers in one time or another, but over the years, I guess most of the publishers and maybe even all of them at some point in time tend to lose sight of the difference between managing to revenue and time to revenue. And those are two very different things, especially if they're focused on an event like, going public or getting acquired or getting the next round of funding. They tend to be focused on managing to revenue. And everything we're talking about today is time to revenue. It takes time. You get resources and you have to build them. You have to enable them. You have to train them. And these are non-immediate revenue producing activities. You don't see immediate returns on these investments. Matter of fact, you might not see them for a couple of years, and it gets really hard in some cases, depending on where that publisher is in their life cycle, to say, we're going to invest today for something we're not going to see return on in 2 years. So that's probably, if you were going to say, what is the one thing, it would be trying to maintain that culture and trying to maintain that commitment and trying to maintain that momentum around these things that are foundational building or time to revenue building, as opposed to managing to the next deal. So that's the quick, easy answer. The other thing that you can look at when you start saying, what can a publisher do, or what's that one thing they can do? Use what you have. So in other words, these publishers that have channels have the ability to build momentum, right? They can get critical mass, but they have to use the resources they have. So your channel has an advisory board. Get with the advisory board, come up with the think outside the box things that they would actually commit to and then promote within that channel, because the channel would be willing to invest money to get people. if the publishers were finding them and making them available, the partners would pay for the people. So it's not a hugely expensive, other than time and resources, but it's not a hugely expensive thing for these publishers to use these resources. You can use those channel partners to create what are the, get your top 10 partners and then look at their salespeople and say, what are the traits of those top 10 salespeople? What are the traits of those top 10 pre-sales people? Publish them and then make that available. You've got the data, make it available to the partners out there. What are the questions they should ask and what should the answers look like? And what does the answer mean that they get? Because I will tell you, and Julian, because I think you were even involved in the periphery, I did a survey of partners and we found, and it wasn't even 99.999, it was 100% of partners. Not a single partner had invested any time, money, or resources on learning how to be a recruiter, learning how to interview, learning how to hire since college. None of them, none of them had. And most of them hadn't even in college received any really kind of formal training. So they don't know how to interview. They don't know how to hire. They don't know how to find them. They don't know how to do these things. So you need to use what you have. The publishers have these skill sets and capabilities. The partners have data that they can supply so we can make smart hiring decisions. Let's use those things that we have.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, any one of these subjects could be the entire hour easily, but
it's true. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome, Jeff. You're absolutely right. I noticed that Susan, you had something when Heather was talking a bit, you might have had a follow-up. Did you have a follow-on to what Heather was saying on this?
Yeah, I think it really is what Heather and Jeff were saying together. I think if I had a magic wand, which we don't, but if we did, it would be that the Jeffs and Mikes and Heather and Neil would, myself, this type of group would come together across ERP vendors, right? I just said something that's taboo, right? Across the vendors. Like we have across channel sales, we have channel marketing, summits, but it's really difficult to get channel, vendors to come across and say, this is the type of sales, this type of marketing, this type of services, and make it attractive to the younger people that Heather's bringing in, right? As a Baker Tilly, we're attractive as a large CPA firm, but can we attract them into the ERP sales, marketing, implementation space? I think it's bringing the thought leadership like this together and creating a set of standards, if you can, across vendors so that we're each chasing the same individual coming out of school, the top group, right? We're each chasing the same person when they get to their mid-career, they're 30, 35, the person that can go to a senior manager role. We're each chasing the same person, right? The top consultants, the top implementers, the ones that have the top net promoter scores come in. So let's get together, put our brain trust together and create that, I don't know if it's a framework, so that partners can, whatever ERP vendor you're at, can be more successful, more independent. That's the thing I would look for. That's magic. I don't know if we ever get there, but that'd be what I would ask.
I cannot help but think about how that echoes our polarized political environment, where if we had people on one side and the other side and the other side coming together for solutions more, which we all want, we're all going for, wouldn't that be awesome? And wouldn't that create so much more value? And in the same way, I think that's kind of what you're saying. Maybe this is the first step in that direction. Right. We have you leaders who are cross technology from each other, yet sharing information. So I think that's really good.
Julian, to extrapolate on that one little bit more, we're not only chasing the same people, we're stealing the same people. So the other problem is when you don't have this pool of talent that you're going after and you're looking at, partners are reactive. They made a deal, they got to implement. They don't have a body. What are they going to do? They're going to steal it from another partner. And the problem with doing that, of course, is one partner becomes stronger at the expense of that other partner. The channel didn't grow at all. The channel did not become stronger as a result of that.
Right.
And so the other reason to come together and the other reason to build this pool and the other reason to have this, because it's new talent, it's new feet on the street. And that's what we need, the new feet. We don't need to keep sharing the same feet back because all they do is charge more and make the cost for everybody go up. There's nothing good about that, the way it's done today. There's nothing good for anybody.
Right.
That's fascinating. Yeah, very true. Interesting. There are a few questions that have come in. It is now 35 after the hour, which is a perfect time to move into some additional questions. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'm going to move on to the Q&A section. Again, audience, We have some questions, but if you have other questions from what has been said today or things that you are dying to know from these channel building leaders, please put your comments into the LinkedIn section and let us know what those are. As they queue, I'm going to start off, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen to get with you all on this. So also, by the way, everybody should know this is being recorded. This webinar is being recorded, and we will have a copy of it and be able to share this out to anybody who requests, and also be able to put this out on social media as wish. All of our panelists have also the ability to do that along with their companies. If they wish, they can do so. We're moving on to questions. So as more questions, Sierra, as more questions may come in, I welcome you to please send those to me through my Skype channel, and I'll keep an eye on that. But I'm going to start off with what we have so far. So, and by the way, these questions are for any of you panelists to be able to answer freely, so you are welcome to do so. The first question I'm seeing is, what are you seeing your channel partners doing today to stand out from the crowd in terms of attracting employees in this niche market of mid-market ERP? Anybody, y'all are welcome to come in as you wish.
I can start. I think it's a little bit what was mentioned earlier here. The traditional way of hiring is not really working. So I think partners, they need to think of other ways to engage, potentially build direct relationships with governmental institutions that are also bringing underskilled people up to speed. I myself took a course before I started my career that was free of charge from the Danish government. So that's what I'm talking about. And also just building relations with recruiters and academic institutions. I think it will, I love the comment by Jeff, by the way, that we need to infuse net new talent. Otherwise it's a zero-sum game. But it will be about compensation eventually. But there's also soft things that a partner can do around building their own partner brand. And I think also around sustainability, how are they dealing with that? Plus the hybrid work environment, how are they catering to that? So maybe you can actually stay in Miami while you're working for a partner that is based in Seattle.
Thank you, Niels. Absolutely. Anybody else want to speak to what they're seeing their channel partners doing? Any particular ones of them to differentiate? Yeah, Heather, go ahead.
Sure. So one of the things that I think is really interesting by a number of our partners is when an individual partner jumps in or a group of partners jumps in and connects with universities directly. So for example, SAP has a mid-market, small to mid-market solution called Business One. ERP solution. And we have a group of really strong Business One partners that have engaged with St. Vincent's College, which is outside of Pittsburgh. And the university teaches, business processes executed on Business One. Then it teaches how to implement it based on business requirements of a model company. And then these partners are available to not only be involved in guest speakers and coaching students and supporting their certification efforts, but then for internships and full-time positions. So they have really, from the start, built these relationships with first the professor, then these students, and then there's this perfect pipeline for the really bright students that come through the program, test them out in an internship, and then move them into full-time roles. So that's like a perfect example. We also see some really great examples at many different universities for a range of SAP solutions where partners are getting plugged into certification events or student competitions and things like that. They're put in as coaches and subject matter experts for these different activities. And then as these partners have a chance to work with student teams, see what they can do, you basically have these students in anywhere from a 2-hour to 3-day casual interview situation where you can really see how do they work under pressure, what's the real aptitude for this topic or for this software solution or whatever the case may be, and you start to build that brand recognition. And when you do those things, and the successful thing across all of these scenarios is that they come back and they do these things year after year, semester after semester, and they have that pipeline built so that as their practices grow, they're bringing new people in, people who are already in place are moving on to more experienced opportunities within the company, taking on leadership roles. And then this new blood comes in not from scratch, but they're coming in with already an understanding. They have the mindset and the culture fit for you because you've already evaluated those things during your engagement through the universities and all of those things. And they can just really start quick on the job.
It's kind of like the snowball rolling down the hill. If the cumulative good keeps on building itself. Yeah, that's fascinating. Another question from go ahead, please.
If I could add to that before we moved on to the next question, is I think that not only are we competing amongst ourselves as publishers for talent, but we're actually competing with our own channels for talent. So when you're looking at trying to make ERP sexy, as the member of the audience put it, it's oftentimes, I think, that you'll find that the new talent is looking at the vendor or the publisher as being the more attractive option to go from a career perspective. And so we need to work with our channel partners so that they are actually the more attractive option as well. So that good talent is actually going to them. Because at the end of the day, that's where the sharp end of the business is. These are the guys that are doing the implementations, actually solving the customer's problems. They need that talent. And sometimes it's a nice, safe corporate career to be in the publisher. But if you're entrepreneurial, then your actual fastest route to real money could actually be with a mid-market partner. You could be a CEO a lot faster there than you could be a CEO of a Microsoft or SAP, I guess.
Well, but the other thing that, because if I understood the question, one of the things that I heard was creative. How can partners find creative things? And honestly, you don't see a ton of creativity. Again, I think this goes back to because they don't have a background in this. They don't wake up in the morning thinking about how do I get more creative or make this company more creative or help compel someone to want to come here versus there. And part of this, the issue that we really need to address is we're bringing in a different generation of workers, and we may not know what's creative. We may not understand what they want and what they are motivated by and what gets them excited. And this idea of one company for life doesn't exist anymore. So we're not going to be hiring somebody who says, I need to make a decision of the place I'm going to work for the rest of my career. So we've got to figure out, well, what makes this career exciting for them? What makes this job exciting for them? And what's going to keep them? The survey I did on the partner channel, for example, there's less than 30%. So 70% of partners do not have any real formal program in place to get initials after the name. So if I've got a consultant and I'm in a XYZ industry, the trade association for that industry most likely has a certification. Well, wouldn't you want your own people to have a certification in the trade association that supports the industry that you sell into? But they don't. So they're not differentiating themselves. They're not building their value. They're just out doing a job. And of course, they sell to a manufacturer day 1 and a distributor day 2 and a real estate company day 3 and healthcare day 4. They're not getting any of this value and building on this value, and they're not creating an environment to keep people interested and keep people for a long period of time. So this creativity thing has to be not only in finding them, but how do you attract them and then keep them?
There's a second question, the sexy question, which I'd like to bring up because it's interesting to me. Someone asks, why is it so hard to attract young people to the ERP consulting industry? Are there any publishers working to make ERP more of a sexy choice for graduating students?
One thing is a great question, right? Because you think of accountants, ERP, audit, consulting, and you're working 9 hours, 12 hours a day. One thing that we're trying to do at Baker Tilly is to make it be interesting so that they can have options working in the office, working remotely, giving them, international work if you want to work in the U.S. but travel and be abroad. So I think to get to what Jeff's talking about is that new breed, that new group, they're trying to save the world along with not work 12 hours a day as an accountant, is to make the ERP or the accounting job look attractive again. And that is not audit and tax, right? That is a different breed. It's data miners, it's AI, it's different types of consulting that we've got to blend in to those implementations and not just be, you're just doing GL this month with data imports. It's still got to happen from an ERP perspective, but there's a quick career progression into some of the more, cool topics that have been mentioned on the call.
Anybody
Yeah,
else have any comments on that one?
Yeah, I think this is going to sound stupid. I think ERP should and can be very sexy because it does have some pretty cool stuff. I mean, if you think about what ERP does, there's not any aspect of a company that ERP doesn't touch, right? It touches everything in this company. And so to Susan's point, you know, when you start talking about machine language and you start, or machine learning, and you start talking about AI, and you start talking about virtual realities, and you start talking about bots, and you start talking about robots, and you start talking about all of the different things, they all exist within our industry. We can make it as sexy as we choose to want to make it. We just got to choose to want to do that. We just say, yeah, come and install some ERP software, and yeah, that doesn't sound that sexy, but you could get pretty. Think of it, you're completely changing the way an organization is run and is managed, and you're helping an organization achieve goals that they could never achieve. You're helping them dominate within their own industries. It can be very sexy, but we got to figure out how to make what we really do sound sexy. It is sexy.
And it is because it incorporates today, you incorporate AI, you incorporate blockchain, you incorporate data analytics and data science.
Yep.
To create, and these are all like the leading edge things. That totally makes sense.
Yep.
There's another question, unless someone had something they're dying to say, there's another question that I wanted to pose to the people from LinkedIn. And that question is, would each of the panelist organizations be willing to participate in a pooling together in educating new talent to have ready to deliver personnel when you have a need? I think this is speaking probably towards like what you were talking about a while ago. I think it was Susan or Heather, where there's so much isolation, you know, there's really no collaboration between the technologies, but this would be like, can you envision a world where CISPRO, Sage, Acumatica, Microsoft might come together to put minds together in order to create something amazing and to turn people on to mid-market ERP or ERP in general? I leave it to you.
Yeah, I can see us participating. How we do that and how we have the framework for that was back to the magic wand. I don't think there'd be a vendor, Julian, that would turn that down, right? I don't think, you know, no one turns that down. A collaborative environment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly we would be interested in something like that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, it would be interesting if we had a forum. I mean, if you remember years ago, there was Comdex, or there were these events or these shows that we would all be at together. We don't really have that one good solid event where we're all going to be there anyway, and we could all pull together and come together and meet. I think that would be step one, is okay, well, what's the event or what's the area where we're all going to be there anyway, and then it'd be easy just to bring everybody together. I think if they were in the same room, I think the publishers would work together. I think we just got to get them in the same room. But I'm not in the publisher anymore, so I'll defer to these guys.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that one?
I don't see why not either. I think Michael and Susan said it. We're not only fighting amongst each other for talent to our own organization or partner organization. We're really fighting against the student taking up another somewhere else than in the IT industry. So again, how can we make around some of the points we've been talking about, that is accounting, it's not AI, things happen. Local, no, you don't need something for sellers, for marketeers. So
Niels,
it's a wealth of opportunity.
I think your internet. Sorry, Niels, your internet is getting to be really hard. We're not really hearing the words you're saying. I apologize for that. I would like to hear it, and maybe you can chat it in if you have the bandwidth to chat it in. I can speak it out, but I apologize for that. We just couldn't quite hear that. But does anybody else have any thoughts there, or I can see there's another audience question I'd like to bring to the table if not. Wonderful. Another audience asks, what would you say is the biggest challenge that your company, and they're referring to publishers, so I think this is those of you who work currently for publishers, or maybe if you can remember those who have worked for publishers, you may recall a good answer to this. What would you say is the biggest change your company has had to make recently to attract and keep talent yourselves? in terms of, they suggested, is it salary? Is it benefits? Is it remote work versus on-site, PTO? What is the challenge, biggest challenge for you publishers?
That's
Start the answer. Heather, please go ahead.
Oh, I would say that's a tough one. I mean, SAP has about 107,000 employees over the these days around the world. So I think each region, if not each country, and definitely in the different reporting lines have different challenges and different approaches with attracting talent. For say our sales, our pre-sales kinds of roles, looking at the early talent. I mean, we've developed in recent years an awesome development academy for those kinds of skills. So we bring in talents and we, really help them not only just learning, what is the solution set, what industry are you going to focus in, but how do you sell, how do you support from a pre-sales perspective and all of that. When we look at more of our technical programming roles, I mean, we have what we call an engineering academy that we've developed in recent years, where once you're in a developer role in many different business lines and product lines across SAP, you have an opportunity to go to the engineering academy and develop more skill set. So we've done all different kinds of things. We've really strengthened our internship program, because of course, when you look at early talents, and my perspective is of course, my experiences on the early talent side, the more you can engage with early talents, while they're still at university, the better opportunity you have to bring them right in. So we've gone global with our intern experience program instead of having niche programs. So we have a global experience that's really focused on, connecting and making sure that young people are connected not only to their department that they were hired into for an internship, but they understand globally what these opportunities are and things. I know I led a board level project last year, and we brought in, I had 57 interns from around the world. We're on part-time on my project, where we were really driving a product strategy. And how exciting was that? And we took interns from, I think, 15 different countries around the world in all different product lines in different areas. And so we're doing all different kinds of things to really engage with our talents and make it interesting for them to want to be here. And then, of course, even the basic things like engaging in the way that students want to be engaged. A big change for SAP is we realized we had to hire early. If you want to hire early talents, the biggest recruiting activities happen in the fall, even if you don't want them to start until the spring. And that killed us. We used to be saying, okay, well, now I get calls and they'd say, oh, well, we need 10 awesomest, young people ever. What do we do? And then they say, well, shoot, 6 months ago, you should have told us that. Then you could have gotten in and we could have found those people. But all those awesome kids have jobs already when you come to me in July and say, I want you to start in August. And so we also had to change how it is that we engage from a hiring perspective with universities to really make sure that we had access to and connections with the students that we wanted to recruit.
Yes, and I wanted to have a follow-up question to you, Heather, but if anybody else has something more to add to that, I want to give you in a moment, but this is a good quick segue, because what you're speaking to is very clearly linked to a question coming in right now on LinkedIn. Before I ask it, Nils wanted to say, my apologies for the internet connection causing audio challenges. I'd like to see us come together as software vendors to create excitement on a career path in our partner ecosystems. We fight for attracting talent not only between us, but for the candidate to select between a career in IT industry or outside. So this was in relation to the last question. There's another question here that I want to bring, and I want to open it with Heather because it fits to you really well. The person says, a barrier that we run into with new college grads is they just don't have the real world experience that resonates with our customers. I would love to be able to tap into the new grad talent pool more, but how do we help jumpstart their experience so they can provide the depth and breadth of experience our customers expect? Heather, I'll let you start off with that because you so are focused on that.
Well, I mean, that's the $1 million question. How do you develop experience without working to get experience, right? So you have to look for, if you're looking to really engage with the earliest talents, we need to find ways within a university setting for those learning opportunities. And this is a great opportunity for a partner, a group of partners to get plugged into universities. So a great way is if a student just, of course, using SAP, but this would be applicable to any software vendor that does what I do, you know, they learn how to build, you know, an ERP system, right? You learn how to configure it from the ground up based on business requirements and all of that. Well, then wouldn't it be awesome if in a capstone class, a partner came in and said, here's a real business challenge. How do we implement S/4HANA in my world or other software? How do we implement this? What would this look like if we had a retail spin on it? Or said, okay, well, last semester you did X. Now here's a scenario where your company's bought out by someone else. What would this look like? How would you do this differently and really come together? The more we can bring these real world collaborations into the mix, I think the better as young people are prepared to take on those challenges. But I think it's also a reality is that, you know, again, you have to set the expectation as you think about staffing your projects, that there are some roles that you can really have a little bit less experienced person. So they have the product expertise or they have the topic knowledge, but maybe they don't have the implementations under their belt. You know, there's roles for everybody on these implementation projects. And if you can get a little creative about how you staff it, then I think there's that opens the door to bring more people in. But wherever you get these collaborations, I think it's key. And even when you can put some ideas in a professor's head. I mean, I know a professor who they partnered, you know, one in Germany, one in the US, partnered together, and then, you know, did their own thing for half a semester. And then all of a sudden the two of them said, okay, well, my university is going to take over your you know, my class is going to take over your company's class, you know. And so all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now we have to merge systems. What do we do? And we found one of the most interesting things is that US kids had no idea that Thanksgiving wasn't a worldwide holiday. And like all the US kids just went home for Thanksgiving, didn't think about it. And the poor kids in Germany are going, how do I even connect with these people? Because they didn't have that real world experience. But boy, what an eye opener of real world learning that happens. And that's a silly example, but you know, it's really the more opportunities you have for this engagement, the better it can be.
Thank you.
And that's
Heather.
on all
That's
of us
great.
to do. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Julian,
Jeff.
I'd add something to this, which is, look, if you're a partner, again, you can't be reactive in hiring. You can't have a need, go out and find it and expect to get someone that's experienced, unless you're going to steal them, to get someone that's experienced. So you have to be proactive. So you have to understand there's a big difference between education and experience. You can go to a college, you can go into a class, you can even configure the software in a class, but that's getting educated on how to do something. Experience takes time. There's no shortcut. You have to actually have experience. So if you're a partner and you're going to be proactive, what can you do? Well, there's a school near just about every town in this country. You need to have a relationship, not only with the business school or the engineering school, whatever it is, but also with the placement office, because again, it's a very, very competitive world in a higher education. And one of the things that they use to attract students is their ability to have X% of their students get placed. Get interns, hire interns, right? Now but that means you have to be proactive. That means you have to have something for those interns to do. That means somebody has to manage that program within your company. But now you've got a mentor and a protege relationship. You've got an intern going out on some call. They're not billable, right? And you're paying them X amount per hour because the college or university will require that you do so. But now you're pre-investing in somebody. And when they do graduate and they do get hired by you, they've not only got some education, but they've got some experience and they can be billable fairly quickly. Otherwise, you've got a year because it takes a year. Experience is what experience is. They have to actually do some of this.
Absolutely.
So be proactive.
Yes,
Right.
Nils also adds a great way to accelerate onboarding and having a productive new candidate is the partnership between us, the academic institution and the partner, where the partner have an internship program and an onboarding program, where the new hire gets hands-on experience on real projects and gets shadowing from experienced consultants and developers. So thank you for the add-on, Nils. Everybody, it is about 20 seconds to the hour, so we are closing out. I wanted to, anybody dying to say something that they didn't get to say at this point? Wonderful. I wanted to say Jeff Ashley, Heather Matthews, Susan Vincent, Michael Bennett, Niels Jensen, thank you five for your time and your information today. As more questions do come in, I will send an email with follow-up questions for you all. And if you wish to respond, I can make sure to get that information out there. But I thank you so much for your time and your organization and your dedication to making this conversation happen.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Great
Appreciate you
job.
having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you very much.
invitation. Appreciate it.
Great
You
job.
got it. Thank you.
Bye.